So I'm here with Pieter-Jan De Pue, the director of Land of the Enlightened, and I think it's congratulations on it, and I think it's one of the most interesting films I've seen all year. For those who are unaware, could you tell us a little about the story?
It's a story about Afghanistan, the war today in Afghanistan, basically, but told through the Afghan kids' eyes, basically. So it's based on a story of a little boy who wants to become the king of Afghanistan and marry the most beautiful princess in Afghanistan after the Americans are gonna leave his country. So it's a kind of a hybrid film between documentary and fiction, and especially the fiction part is the dream of those kids. So we stayed a long time embedded with the American army, visualizing the world, the war and the fight between them and the Taliban. But on the other hand, I wanted to make that story of that boy who wants to become a king, and so it's those two worlds will come together.
Before making the film, you were a photographer in Afghanistan. What made you suddenly realize that you wanted to tell the story in this particular way, which is like a mix of docudrama and fiction?
Mm-hmm. It's to be clear, I'm not a photographer. I study cinema, classical film cinema. But I started exploring Afghanistan with a photo camera because I wanted to know Afghanistan in the first place after I graduated from the film school, and not really having the idea to make a film there, but I was just traveling around in Central Asia, and I did a deal with lots of humanitarian organizations that I was actually going to work for them for free as a photographer, making photo stories about their projects all over Afghanistan, and as a return they would give me like access to everything I needed, to subjects, but also my need for having like translators, drivers, accommodation, and all that stuff. And during this first 2 years, while working as a photographer, I discovered many kids who were surviving in the war in Afghanistan and also had lots of fantasies about their future. And I was also embedded for the first time with the American Army at that time for Vice magazine. And then after 2 years, when I returned back to Belgium, I started writing the first draft of a script that I said, it might be very interesting to tell the war in Afghanistan by the Afghan kids. And that was actually the beginning of a long project.
Yeah, because I wouldn't exactly classify it as a war movie. I think it's more of an ethnographic documentary where you're getting a portrayal of these people you don't typically see in cinema. It kind of reminded me of Robert J. Flaherty's work on Man of Iron and stuff. Instead of now you've got these Afghani child soldiers. How do you approach these children to be in your movie, and what would they like to work with?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not a war movie. Again, it's a story of those kids in Afghanistan, and those kids, they live in a war. So of course, the war needed to be a context to explain what was going on in Afghanistan. How I was getting in touch with those kids was basically, we discovered that lots of those things that they were doing in daily life to survive, for example, dealing with opium, the traffic of arms, gemstones, scrap metal, it was like a kind of a smuggling trajectory that was going from Afghanistan into Pakistan. And in this smuggling, lots of kids were involved. So we told basically in a underlaying storyline the smuggling of those weapons and gemstones towards Pakistan, how kids are involved in that, and then in a third layer, their dreams and their fantasies. So, it was a long process getting along with those kids, and especially to earn their trust, to not only earn their trust, but also trust the communities and the village elders and the mullahs and the commanders, the warlords, sometimes Taliban. So I needed to understand the culture in the very first place and to speak the language. So that was also one of the reasons why this film took like years and years.
7 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, 8 years.
8 years. Wow.
So was kind of a challenging project. It was not only filming, but many more things came along.
There's a lot of stunning and startling imagery in the movie, like you see children extracting explosives from Soviet landmines, and it's a great reminder that there's always been a war in Afghanistan, and like this is all these children know. That said, they may be used to it, but did you and your crew ever feel in danger when you're shooting these children holding grenades or working in these like horrible conditions in mines and stuff?
Yeah, sure. You know, after all these years, when you live in Afghanistan, you become an Afghan, you know, basically. So you start like thinking as them. You get so much absorbed in their culture, because I was, you know, long times away from home, and whenever you speak the language, you get access into their daily lives. So you accept also the danger. It's rather when you return back home and you look everything from a distance, and you say, "Wow, we were sometimes doing crazy stuff there," you know. Specifically about those landmines and stuff, you know, as a director, you know, I was kind of responsible with my crew. I knew that it was totally crazy to walk inside a minefield with a crew. So what we did was, those kids were doing in daily life, they were getting out these mines. But what we did was, we were putting disarmed mines again in the ground and just saying to these kids, do the thing that you do in daily life. So we followed them with a camera. And you saw them, yeah, like they did in the film, and plenty of kids without arms and legs. But, you know, I remember at that point, during that specific scene, for example, they said, "Oh yeah, we had some more mines. Maybe we can just like put some mines everywhere, you know?" But of course, those mines were not disarmed, so they're like putting like this kind of shells and stuff everywhere. So at some point it became like a total mix, what is now armed and disarmed, and
like imagine the crew were just like bracing themselves.
Yeah, so luckily nothing severe happened, but sometimes it was kind of tricky, yes.
Yeah, the kids have a very natural feeling. It feels very realistic. Did it take a while to make them act in a way where they're not playing for the camera, or like just not referencing the camera, that they're just going about their daily activities?
Sure. But you have to understand that those kids never understood what we did. They never understood that we were making a film, and the basic reason for that was because there was no electricity in their place. So they never saw television, they never saw just like a video on a mobile phone, they never saw cinema. So, and then moreover, we were filming on a film camera with film rolls, you know, not video or like digital. Super 16. So at the end of the day, we were not able to show them the rushes, because we were also shooting without video assist, just because of problems with electricity and stuff. So, you know, they thought it was like a game that we were doing, and that this camera was like a tool that we needed for something, you know. And that was as well a big challenge for us, because I knew those kids were just like kids coming from the mountains. Those were non-actors. So I could not tell to them like, okay, now you're going to walk from A to B, and then you're going to look to the camera, you're going to say this or that. They would just block. So what we did was, we created lots of space around them. I mean, we tried to capture them in their daily life, but at the same time, I was trying to implement my story on them. So it was kind of a game, like I was rather asking them questions, like, imagine that you're gonna become the king of Afghanistan, what you gonna do? And he was like, Gholam Nasir was saying, I'm gonna gather my boys, I'm gonna gather my Kalashnikovs, we're just gonna grab the palace. And I was like, okay, just show me, you know. And that's how we worked with them, constantly in a very organic, playing-wise way of filming.
There's also, you see shots from the American soldier's perspective, and a lot of reminded me a lot more realistic, but of Jarhead, in the sense that it kind of captured the mundanity of war between fighting, which I don't think many films have done, which is unique to yours. But and we've talked about Robert J. Flaherty. Were there any big influences that you think you brought to the film?
No, because I never saw Jarhead.
Oh really? Oh, okay.
I know the film, and I know some parts of it, but I never saw the complete film. So no, I mean, like we stayed months and months with the American Army, and basically what you see in the film about the American Army is just capturing reality. You know, we did not even ask them, can you do something like this or that? It was just like, you know, what they were, I mean, just captating basically. So you see the fights, you see the boredom, you see, and that was it, you know.
Yeah, because it's such a strange juxtaposition, because you see them with these like crazy machine guns that they're shooting, and then you just see them like after that just like strumming away on a guitar.
Yeah, it was like, you have to know there was like 10% fighting and 90% was just doing nothing and boredom, you know. So there was plenty of stuff to film, from these guitars and just like these guys who were saying stupid things about what was going to happen, about not stupid things, very interesting, but it's brass and very fairy tale wise stories, you know. So it was daily business.
You've spoken about how while you were making the film you were attacked by the Taliban. Could you explain exactly what happened? It sounds extraordinary.
Yeah, it's a long story. I just told to your colleague here. You know, it's a very long story to explain you in detail, but what happened, short told, is that after we filmed in the Lapis Lazuli gemstone mine, we were heading back to Kabul, and this community who was like living close by this gemstone mine, they were related to Taliban, and you know, basically they put an ambush on the way back to Kabul, and we were with two cars crossing at some point a very high mountain pass, and the first car with the Afghan crew got stopped by a checkpoint of Taliban. Luckily the Taliban didn't see the second car, so they thought they were alone. They attacked them, they got them out of the car, they start knocking on them with rocks and the butts of Kalashnikovs, and it's then they put them at gunpoint, and then they asked them to destroy all the equipment, everything, all lenses, cameras, laptops, hard drives. Luckily the rushes from the shoot were in the second car, so they did not destroy them, and those were the rushes that are still in the film. And then they wanted to kill them finally, but then, you know, it was the first day of after Eid, after Ramadan. So they said, we are not going to kill you, it's a present of God, we are not going to kill you. And then I got involved as well, because I gave like first aid to the crew. I walked up there on the mountain pass to check out the situation, and then a car came on the top of the mountain pass, saw us, and we thought that was the Taliban who reorganized them, and you know, maybe they saw me and they wanted to kidnap me now together with the crew. I don't know what their plans were, but apparently after that it turned out it was police, but the police at that time thought that we were Taliban around our car, so they start like firing at us with machine guns, luckily from a large distance, so nobody got died or something, but it was lots of people got injured. Yeah, it got injured. And then everything became clear that, you know, they were not Taliban, we were not Taliban, and then there were police, and then we brought the wounded people to a hospital, but, you know, the production said, okay, we're going to stop here. Because, I mean, the insurance was not covering European crew members anymore. And lots of people wanted to close down the project. But then, you know, I said, it's my film, it's my first film, I want to end this correctly, and I want to make a nice film, I want to make good film. So even I spent so many years at that time in Afghanistan that I didn't want to get, you know, how to say, give it up like this. But then I decided, you know, the production gave me another chance and said, okay, you want to finish that film, all right, but you have to come back to Afghanistan alone and without Europeans. So then I needed to train Afghans to become audiovisual assistants. It's a long process because, you know, lots of those Afghans, they, you know, there is no cinema in Afghanistan. It's a country already 40 years in war, so cinema is not at all a priority. So it was very difficult to make them aware about, you know, how to deal with lenses, with sound gear, with whatever kind of equipment. And then finally, you know, we decided also to adapt to the very unpredictable situation as in Afghanistan. So we tried to be flexible as possible with many plans, a lot of time, and having a very small crew which could be like operating in any kind of circumstances, but also with constantly rotating crew members. That nobody really know, okay, who is now working with this foreigner, where are they heading to, what are they going to shoot, and everything became as unpredictable as Afghanistan, and unpredictable. I mean, and that's basically how we shot like I think 80% of the film.
Because you don't sense that one half is made by professionals and the other part isn't. Like it seems seamless in the film.
Yeah, I mean, like I shot a film myself. I did a camera, but you know the sound was done by assistants. The camera, the lenses and stuff. You know, it was lots of technical stuff that we needed assistance for. Also, like taking care about the animals, taking care about food. Logistical part was a huge thing, like to bring the exposed rolls of film back to the embassy and from the embassy back to Belgium. You know, supplies, fuel, generators, technical problems, cars. Yeah, it was more. That was more important, I think, than the technical crew itself.
So you've got the Taliban, and then you were talking about you've electrical shortages, and the film looks fantastic, and it's shot in Super 16. What was the reason for choosing this kind of impractical way of shooting, as most films are shot in digital or 35mm?
Because even it sounds impractical, but it was the most practical way in Afghanistan because there is no electricity, and if you want to shoot digital nowadays in Afghanistan, I mean, you need like plenty of batteries for a digital camera, but not only batteries, but you need also a laptop, you need hard drives, you need backups, you need like, I don't know, it's consuming in generally much more electricity than just a simple film camera. But a film camera, you know, you need like to have one spare battery, like a huge, you know, fully charged battery, and you can shoot like 10 rolls of film. And you have to keep the battery warm, and then you have to make sure that you have a solar panel or whatever to charge that battery again. And also a film camera was much more reliable in those very extreme conditions. Because you have to understand, in the winter it was minus 25, in summer it was like 45. So those digital cameras with all the dust and you know, these sensible sensors, yeah, it was much more reliable to shoot on film.
Like one tiny crack can like ruin the way a digital camera works.
Sure. I remember we brought some 5D cameras with us just to shoot time lapses. And I remember one time, you know, we just were on the ice of a frozen river. The camera, we fell down. Poof, the camera was in 1,000 pieces. Gone. You know. How many times I counted that I fell down with this big ARRI camera. It's like, okay, it's very heavy. It's very brute, it's massive, it's not easy to work with, but I felt like 25 times on the ice, and this camera just continued working like fluently.
It's like the old Nokia phones, like you can drop them and they break, but if you drop an iPhone it like cracks immediately.
Yeah. I mean that's also still a heritage of Afghanistan, that I still have this phone. And you know, you drop it and look you see, and the battery comes out, and it's you put it in each other again, and it continues working. It's
So I'll finish up. Just what are you thinking of doing next? What's your next project? Are you going to do another thing in Afghanistan or a more conventional movie?
No, not Afghanistan. Definitely not, because I think there is much more in the world than only Afghanistan. What I can say about next, it's how to say. It's a long story how to explain, but we are advancing already. We are in a kind of a stage that in full writing, script writing stage, but it's a story. I can tell you already this. It's a story about two brothers in West Ukraine, in the Carpathian Mountains, and they grew up like as Tsigan, like as you know Tsigan, right? Gypsies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In the middle of the woods, in nature, they are very good hunters, and they are very close with each other. They believe in in paganism, like nature gods, and really very very close to the nature elements. And at some point, the war breaks out in eastern Ukraine. And the army start mobilizing them, mobilizing people from all over Ukraine, and they have to join the army. And because they are very good hunters, become snipers, and they are sent to the war, and they break from each other because of the war. It's actually the war which is splitting them, and one brother dies, and one brother returns alone back to the woods and the mountains in the Carpathians. But it's based on a true story in reality in Ukraine, but it's also based on a book which is written by Joseph Boyd. It's a Canadian writer who wrote a book, 3-Day Road. It's a book about two Indian brothers, but from Native Canadians, who are sent to the First World War. And it's identically the same story, but 100 years later. So, but we are in fully development and I mean like pre-production. So it's gonna be a fiction film, but based on a realistic story.
Okay. Well, I'd urge everyone to go see Land of the Enlightened. It came out today, didn't it? In Ireland.
Yeah, that's right.
I wish you every success with it. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thank you. All right.